On to matters pertaining to the involvement of the Australian Federal Police and the matter of refugees, asylum seekers and Sri Lanka in particular. And I wondered, can you inform me whether the Federal Police utilise the knowledge, experience and resources of the High Commissioner from Sri Lanka to Australia in its investigations of asylum seeker vessels intending to leave from Sri Lanka, or in its counter-terrorism activities in Australia or in Sri Lanka?
Senator, I might take that question. The short answer to your question is no. We have a liaison officer in Colombo. We deal directly with our counterpart agencies in Sri Lanka for a range of crime types, but specifically for people smuggling investigations.
Okay, so your officer in Sri Lanka, is that officer based in the Australian High Commission there?
That's correct, he is.
And his job is, or that person's job is to liaise with the Sri Lankan authorities to do what sort of things?
There's a range of functions that our liaison officers perform, and varies across countries. Our liaison officer in Sri Lanka is mostly engaged in sharing of information and intelligence for investigational purposes, and also is involved in capacity building for local Sri Lankan agencies.
Okay, so when you say capacity building for local Sri Lankan agencies, in what sense? What sort of capacity building work does the AFP do in Colombo or in Sri Lanka?
Senator, there's a range of activities that we are involved in. If you just give me one moment, I'll get you the specifics of what we have undertaken in Sri Lanka. If you will allow me, I'll just read through some of the things that we are involved in with a view to improve the capability and capacity of the Sri Lankan Police Service, which is our major partner. The AFP is engaged in a range of capacity development initiatives in recent years. These include computer-based training software that was installed in a training facility. Includes 40 computer-based training workstations that we have given to, I think, the same facility, the same training facility. We have provided additional computer equipment, motor vehicles, motorcycles, and some minor office equipment and analytical software to their criminal investigation department. And we have also facilitated positions on training courses, particularly focused on management and police development programs.
Okay, can I ask whether the Australian Federal Police were asked or made any representations in relation to the appointment of the Sri Lankan High Commissioner, the current Sri Lankan High Commissioner?
Senator, I think we may have answered this at estimates previously. The answer again is no. That is not a matter that the AFP would ordinarily be involved in, the appointment of a High Commissioner or an Ambassador to Australia. I'm not sure what the process is, but I suggest that that's probably something that Foreign Affairs and Trade would have more information on. So
you say that the Federal Police made no representations as to whether or not his credentials should be recognised? That's correct, yes. Thank you. Can you tell me, is the AFP aware of the phenomenon in Sri Lanka of dissidents being abducted in white vans? Has that come across the awareness of the Federal Police in the work they're doing in Sri Lanka?
Senator, not to my specific knowledge. I don't know whether that's something that may have been reported in the media in Sri Lanka, and perhaps our liaison officer is aware of it, but in a formal sense, the AFP has not been aware, more certainly to my knowledge, the AFP has not been made aware of that phenomena.
And when you said the AFP doesn't liaise with the High Commissioner here in Australia, in terms of the engagement of the Federal Police with the Sri Lankan government and the Navy in Sri Lanka, are the Federal Police involved in or have access to the Sri Lankan Navy intelligence with regard to interception of asylum seeker boats and disruption activities?
Ordinarily, Senator, I would say the answer to that is no. We deal with the Sri Lankan Police Service. Now, if in the course of dealing with the Police Service, intelligence is made available to us that perhaps may be from the Sri Lankan Navy, I couldn't be sure, but we deal with our counterpart, which is the Sri Lankan Police.
And are the Sri Lankan Police involved in disruption activities prior to refugees leaving?
Senator, I'll take that on notice. I believe the answer would be yes. Obviously, disruptions that occur within the island, disruptions that occur at sea would be a matter for the Navy.
And in terms of the Sri Lankan asylum seekers who go back to Sri Lanka, voluntarily or otherwise, what tracking does the Federal Police do of whether or not they are tortured on their return?
Senator, we have no role or responsibility to track those individuals. That would be a matter. We wouldn't even necessarily be aware of who they are or when they're returned.
So you're working in the High Commission in Colombo. Do you know if the High Commission has procedures in place to follow up with the Sri Lankan authorities on any claims of abuse from returnees?
I think that would be a question for DFAT, Senator.
So
we're not
the
aware
AFP
of.
is not aware
the
of them?
AFP is not aware, no.
Senator, if I could just add to that, Tony Negus, Commissioner of the Australian Federal Police. We have answered questions here in this committee before that certainly if any of that information became aware of the member of the AFP became aware of that information, that would be reported accordingly. So we are not aware of those instances or allegations being made, and the action would be taken by our officer immediately to report such abuses if they were reported to him.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
All right.